Good morning, Phil Guinois and Jack DeShane, Micah Watkins, and our special guest today, Chris Busse. And this is the ENO Success Podcast, May 20th, 2024. Wow. I went back about a decade or two, didn't I? So, guys, what should we talk about? We're chatting here a little bit about unshakableness and vibration. So, Jack, what do you think we should start with?
Well, I guess you can start with the story you just told me, and that would fall under maybe both.
Absolutely. So I don't have all the details. In fact, actually, why don't we bring Chris on? Let Chris tell the story, and then we'll chat because he has a little more knowledge of it than I do.
And have we introduced Chris? We did, right?
We did.
Okay. All right, Chris, you are on.
Oh, hey. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's wonderful being here today.
So, Chris, tell us, because you have a little more detail than I do of Scotty Scheffler and this weekend at the golf tournament, and that he ended up getting arrested.
Yeah.
So kind of tell the backstory to it.
Yeah, just a quick backstory. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler, number one golfer in the world, playing the U.S. Open this weekend at Valhalla in Kentucky, in Louisville, and there was just some big misunderstanding when he was trying to get into the tournament earlier in the morning for a workout. They were instructed, players were instructed to go in a certain way. Little did he know that there was a fatality up ahead and there was some police activity going on. He did not understand maybe what the police officer was telling him. He thought he was just going in like normal. Unfortunate situation where he ended up not, I guess, listening to this police officer's instructions, dragged the guy for a couple feet, and he ended up getting arrested.
Felony.
This is, felony arrest, released without bail. This was, he was going in for a practice, a little warm-up workout. He said I don't remember what his tee time was, but he ended up getting released, showing up to the course about an hour or 45 minutes somewhere before his tee time. Yeah. That was Friday. Then he goes out and he shoots, I can't remember, a 66, 64, a great round. He had a great round that day, so it was quite amazing what he accomplished there after a really, really rough start to the day.
Yeah.
Very
so,
rough.
I heard that story while I was at a convention conference this weekend, and the gal that I was talking to, both of her kids are golfing and whatnot, and she was just, shared a snippet of it, and I didn't have time to get into all the details like Chris did. But what amazed me is that, what I heard was that, like, it just barely rattled him. Like his mindset was so solid that most people would be completely off of their game, right? And he went out and played well on Friday, really well.
Shot a 66.
I guess Saturday was maybe not quite as well, and then did pretty well on Sunday. But just think about the, being unshakable to be able to pull something like that off, where you get completely blindsided, right? I mean, he got blindsided, and it's an hour before he has to tee off. So, it'd be interesting to know what his routine is, what he does to keep his mind in the right spot. So, I think we kind of talk about that.
Yeah, the part about the unshakableness and being in his mind and then looking at what he does for a living, because one of the statements was most people would be freaked out, and yet most people in their life don't have to do something that he has to do, which is basically shut out the entire world except for that putt and the green right now and the way it lies and all of this and all of the other stuff has to be able to be pushed out of the way. And it's not even like a game like football or hockey or there's a lot of movement going on, a lot of action. You're almost in reactionary most of the time. And not in golf, though. You're not in reactionary. You're not playing offense and defense. There's not a lot going on. It's constantly you and that ball and that hole for long periods of time, even in rehearsal, even in practice, even in everything. So then he comes up to this moment, and his mind appears to already be programmed to be able to allow all that to go on and then just completely click right back to what he had trained his mind to do, which is only focus on the ball and the hole and what's in front of you right now.
Yeah, Micah, thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's it really comes down to the programming. It comes down to the training. So even in no matter what you're doing in life, whatever you've trained for, you're going to default to the lowest level of training that you've gone through. And look at that situation of what you've been preparing, and you're the number one golfer in the world for a reason, because you've trained and prepared and conditioned yourself to be effective at what you're doing. And that effectiveness is being able to block out the all the distractions that are around us. And how many people are living their lives and they are fully just looking at the distractions and not focused on what it is that they want to accomplish. And that's where, I look at this story, and I know nothing about golf other than, it's you, the ball, and the lay of the land. And you're either good at it and you've practiced, and because it's one of the most difficult sports on the planet. It's just as difficult as hitting a baseball. Hitting a baseball is it's almost impossible when you look at the mathematics. It's like everything happens in microseconds, right? However, the focus that those batters and the attention and being able to even lose, not focus on the distractions and just focus on the ball and what's happening and how it's coming at them, then they're able to, square up and hit the ball and do what they need to do. And then they have the impact. But yeah, that story for me is just like, wow, okay, well, where's everyone else at, in their lives and what they're focusing on and what are they doing? And in business, how many business owners are out there? They're like, I want to do this, and I want to do that. And then they allow the distractions to get in the way, and it starts kicking them off course. And they wonder why I'm like, why am I struggling? Why isn't this working the way that I thought that it was going to be working?
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you were talking, both of you, Jack and Micah, what came up for me is, what one of the concepts that we teach in achieving business and life success, and that is intention mechanism. Like, his intention mechanism was highly, highly refined to be able to do that. Because in that training that we do, there's other things going on, right? And we actually see what happens, right? But not him. He knew exactly what intention he had, and he stayed with it.
Yeah. So he was able to, whatever he has to deal with about that situation that went on before he started that, he was able to put that away. And even maybe he still has to deal with it, right? Still has to deal with it.
What one kind of interesting thing to think about is the fact that the next day he went out there and shot, 73, I think it was. So like one over par, which he has not had a round over par all year in a professional in a tournament. So now maybe sleeping on it, thinking about it a little bit more, letting it get in your head a little bit more. I think he was almost like that training, just all his training, he just reacted that first day on Friday. Just went out there, did what he was supposed to do. Whereas Saturday, okay, now you're sleeping on it, you're thinking about it, you're dwelling on it. It's probably consuming you. I mean, like you were saying, from a business standpoint, it's so easy for that to kind of relate to anything in business. If you've got certain goals and things that you want to accomplish on a particular day, and something comes up that derails that, how effective are you in working through
Chris,
that?
That's a great point, because it wasn't just him. It wasn't like he got done the day of the accident or incident. He didn't get done that day, and it's just like, in his own mind as he's driving home, I'm going to have to deal with that ticket or deal with that thing. I I don't know how many millions of people that are involved now, and how could there have been any silence that night for this guy? From his family, from social media, from phone calls, text messages. He had to have been inundated.
Mm-hmm. Guarantee.
Yeah. I'd have even settled out with a couple of drinkies or something and just woke up the next day. Like, I would imagine all of that really hit him after what he was really lucky. Probably the part where it benefited him. We won't even say lucky, benefit him. That it was only that far away before he was teeing off. So it was like, okay, they made a mistake. I didn't do anything. I'm going to get out of that. Let me go focus on this. Yet when he got done, how many millions of people are focused on it, and it had to have been going all night long.
Yeah.
Is he married and all that?
Oh, yeah, married.
Yeah, well, so you don't think
brand
that was
new child.
That's not the conversation. They just having dinner like that never happened, and what a great game, and they're just focused on the game. No. They're going, I've gotten 1,000 phone calls today, every text so by the next day, now it had occupied a lot of energy, space in his mind and all that, and he had to go back out and do it. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Well, how many times? When we look at just like our daily lives, how often is that happening? For just, hey, we're just Bob and Sue just living life, right? That's and where do they go, and how do they find out how to accomplish what's his name again?
Scotty Scheffler.
Scotty Scheffler. I told you I know nothing about golf.
I know
about that Woods guy, right?
Yeah.
And, other than that,
the drunk guy. Who's the drunk guy?
Daly.
John Daly.
There you go. I knew the drunk guy. I wonder how the drunk guy would have dealt with it.
But so for the just the people out there in the world, like, they see this and they go, that's a remarkable. But everyone sees it on the surface level. They don't realize what did all the training, the work, all that stuff, and then how are you? To what Jack was saying, like, how are you dealing with that, the aftermath of that, and still maintaining like a mental, strong mental fortitude to be able to just persevere and still do what you need to do.
Many successful people do this
at a very high level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they do. They can block out all the drama and all the bullshit and all that and focus on what needs to be done and get it done, and then handle that stuff and then go right back onto course. And I've seen them in all my life. I've seen these people. They're highly effective. They have a high level of emotional intelligence. So they can see everything going on around them, yet they're able to remain calm and then just respond to things and make choices, as opposed to going into the drama and the fear and the anger and all the other emotions that go along once you're attempting to deal with all that stuff.
Well, and so he's obviously trained, pretty much his entire life to play golf, right?
Yes.
And all of that training and mindset and, the sports psychology and everything that those guys go through. However, and that was all to play golf and to be really good at golf. But I'm going to assert that training, it went through all of it for an instance just like that, right? Because that's not the norm, right? He's going to go out and play golf, and he's going to, in tournaments and all that. But that training, all of that could have been to overcome something just like that.
Yeah.
Which is going to be very few things in his career that he would have to overcome like that.
Yeah, it brings to mind a sad, horrible story of somebody doing that and me watching it, and unfortunately in a very sad, horrible circumstance. But it was the Packers and Lions. And this was in Lambeau Field, and somewhere in the third quarter or something, we injured Aaron Rodgers. So the Packers are winning, and I don't think we had won in Lambeau in 20-something years. And they injure Aaron Rodgers, so he's taken out of the game. Might have been just before halftime, around halftime or something, and then we are winning now. Like, we're winning. And it's in the fourth quarter or wherever it was at that point, and we're winning because this backup is not going to be able to do the job. And then Rodgers comes walking out onto the field. And I'm like, no. And you can see it in his face. You can, like, all of his training was for this moment, this one little sliver of time. And I'm like, don't put him in. They put him in. And he just, and just won the game. Like, you could see it. Like, the injury, whatever was affecting him and all that, it was just all put to the side, and he knew these were the moments of why I trained and did everything I did, was to, even I think the whole crowd knew. They looked down at him. The look of absolute calm confidence in his face of what he was going to walk out there and do was just absolutely apparent. I knew it was over. It's like, yeah.
So the other end of the spectrum there, your Colorado teams this weekend.
Oh, man.
Both teams.
Yeah. Now,
Didn't fare so well.
Yeah. I mean, like the Avs, I mean, the Avs gave it a great run. They pushed it into double overtime. But when you look at the momentum of the game, the momentum of that first overtime was all for Dallas. The Avalanche did not have, that momentum going into it, and it carried over into that second quarter or the second overtime. Denver, on the other hand, I was watching that game, and we had a training this weekend, so I had to record it, and I had to block my, not look at my phone because I was getting, I had text messages. I was like, no, I was like, swipe. Like, I had to look at it with squinty eyes just so I couldn't see like what the message was, and just swipe it, like half blindedly.
So it was kind of like a dating app. You were swiping left.
Yeah,
exactly. Right. I had to get this off the screen so I can watch the game. And what I noticed, I was like, okay, great. Denver dominated the first half of that game. They're up 20 at home, like they're dominating. And then all of a sudden,
felt the shift.
There's a shift. There's a shift in momentum. And it's like, all of these are professionals. And I don't care what sport you're talking about. These are professional athletes that are dedicated to their craft, and it's a mindset. It is 100% a mindset. Their skill is their skill. They've been working on it, but when you start getting into that professional level, you can't tell me that they're not, doing stuff to set their mind right in the locker rooms or outside of the locker rooms when they're not practicing. It's not 100, they're doing other stuff. And so when you look at, when you put a team against the wall, and you back them into a corner, you got two choices. They either respond or you get defeated. You can either live in the fear and allow the fear to take you over, or you can respond and you can accept the situation and push through the fear to we're going to overcome this. And that's what Minnesota did. And and you could see the look on, and Denver was just, they were almost stunned that they came back from 20. I think at one point they had a 12-1 run. It was like 15-1 run of the Minnesota over Denver. Denver scored 1 point in like a 5-minute period of time. Like, what? They had one free throw. So all of a sudden, they're just the dynamics there. And that's the one nice thing about it. That's what's cool about sports is you can analyze that and, okay, well, where's this showing up in my own life? Or we can look at those situations, but it's, I don't know.
It comes down to training and mindset. I think it's a great parallel with the business world in general. I mean, everything you just said can be translated over to business too. Yeah. You could have, if you don't have the right mindset and you let fear take over, you're going to limit yourself on what you can do to, whether it be win that game, whether it be to win that client. I mean, it's kind of the same idea.
Yeah. Well, it's all about it's all about creating the empowering beliefs, or the empowering acknowledgments, or whatever you want to call it. Just it's reframing, right? It's reframing that, hey, look, this is possible. I'm going to do this and move forward with it, as opposed to, the fear of it would be like, oh, I've tried everything and I can't make it work.
Well, and I think, Jack, you talked about it a little bit earlier, and I think this is a point where we can kind of maybe transition a little bit is, the map of consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. And energy levels, right? So talk a little bit about, that piece, because I think when people begin to understand, and you just had an experience personally of like a massive energy shift in your environment, right? So let's talk about that for just a couple of minutes on, the map of consciousness and people beginning to maybe see and recognize where their energy or what energy is around them that is affecting them.
Yeah. So at first, the map of consciousness would be something that was designed by some scientists in a book called Power versus Force. David Hawkins, Sedona Institute. They basically created a map that divided, we'll call lower consciousness from higher, I guess, or whatever, however you want to place that. But at least when you looked at it, you could understand. Like the lower consciousness would have words like humiliation, shame, guilt, anger, fear, pride,
manipulation.
Yeah, all that stuff was like in the lower ends of the consciousness. And then on the upper side of the consciousness, you would find things like courage and acceptance and neutrality and peace and love and joy and enlightenment and things like that. And there was a division between these two groups, and they labeled one force and they labeled the upper echelon power. And in the book anyway, they were making a claim that one person vibrating consciously up on the upper part of that chart or map would offset the negative energy of 90,000 people on the lower part. And when you start now, here's an interesting fact though. So that would show you the amount of power there is in higher consciousness, emotional intelligence, as opposed to just reacting and living in the chaos and the drama and the fear and all that. Yet, if that is true, then how could your environment be affected if you're at the top of that chart? If positive energy is more powerful than negative, then how would negative energy have any impact on you if you're positive? And I was at an event once with this guy named George Adair, and he was speaking up on the stage, and this guy got up, and he was pretty buffed out dude, and he was like, George, if positive energy is so much stronger than negative energy, then how can it affect me and all this? And George was like, oh, now George at this point is like 70 or something. He's like little skinny little old man. And he's like, well, you look like a pretty big buff guy there, right? And he's like, so what do you think's easier? Well, let's just say we built a shelf right above me here, and we set you up on the shelf. What do you think's going to be easier? Me to pull you down or you to pull me up? Which one's going to take more energy? Well, obviously, George could pull him down easier. All he's got to do is just a little bit of leverage. Gravity's going to come into play, and he's going to go flying. Otherwise, he's got to use a lot of power to pull George up to him. So if you understand that part, then you say, okay, well, I don't know, things can happen in life. For sports, for even an office, whatever. You just get one person in there. Like you got a good team. They're all united. They're moving in the right direction. You bring a diva in. A diva who's like demanding their way and maybe condescending comments at everyone else or whatever. And you're like, no, the locker room's getting all wonky. Now things like, well, how can that be? How could that be? How could this one element come in and offset all these other people that were vibrating up here and the elements there? So then they say, well, I don't know. But yeah, when they came into the environment, things started to change. Sports, it happens. In business offices, it happens. It can happen in families. I know one family who built a house for their daughter and the husband and the couple of kids, and built the house fairly far away, and then found out when I was talking to him that was on purpose, because if we would have built down the street, which was first talked about, well, then they'd be here all the time. And he was like, we put them, 45 minutes away so that they didn't show up all the time, because when they're here, so the key is, how is this happening? How could it happen? How are they having that much of an effect? Can't you just ignore them? He's a diva. He's got a big mouth, whatever. Can't you just, I just don't pay attention to that. I just ignore it. No, what happens is it starts to permeate your mind. It starts to consume your thoughts. I'm getting fed up with his shit. It starts doing that. And then the conversations start. Now you got multiple people doing, well, this is bullshit. If this is going to go on, I'm not signing my contract next year. And it starts going on. And then it's every now and you're starting to go, you know what? I don't even want to go to practice. I don't even want to go into the office. I don't even want to go there. So the effect is actually happening where all effects happen. It's happening in the mind. Nowhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it starts as one little thing. And then, like you said, it's a little conversation in your head. It's a little conversation in Micah's. Now it's a water cooler conversation. And all of a sudden, that one small bit of dark energy, let's just put it that way,
Sure.
has begun to permeate all of the positive energy and now start to drag it down.
Oh, yeah. Even at band practices in my past, there have been times when I'm like, I don't even want to go to practice. I'm just tired of the singer's crap. I'm not going to keep dealing with this. And then there's a blowout at some point. They'll be in practice and the blowout happens and all that stuff goes on.
Well, and it's important for us to recognize that. A lot of the times people are just living in it and they're not aware. So, for those out there listening, the only way to really, get out of that and realize, how do I raise my vibration? How do I raise my energy level? It's through awareness training, right? It's awareness work. Well, it's funny that we're talking about this because I literally, as I was driving here to the podcast this morning, I was having a conversation with a guy. He's done the work. He's done the awareness training. He's aware, and he's gone through this, multiple levels. He's in solar. And he's out in a different state, and they're, they got rented out a house, and he's got a whole crew out there, and they're just dominating out in this other state selling solar. Yet one individual all of a sudden thought it was a party. And it's like, oh, wait a second, you're not coming back to the house. You're not doing your work. You're not effective. Now it's starting to affect the team. And he was like, oh, well, I had to send this guy home. I had to put him on a plane and send him home. Be like, you're done. You're out of here. You're not part of the team anymore. You're a distraction. But he's done the work. He's done this awareness training. So he's kind of looking at it going, oh, wait a second. Okay, hey, this is the situation. I got to get this guy out of here. It'd be no different than a cancer in a football locker room.
Yeah.
Or the diva, right, that we're talking about. It's the same thing. You got to get rid of that. Otherwise, it's going to start to affect the whole team, the whole unit as one. And then, then all of a sudden they're going to get off course. They're not going to make the sales that they're hoping to make. And it was just like, we're sitting here talking about this. And I was like, I just had this conversation.
Yeah, and he knows, and that's why he'll be able to succeed. If the leader of that group didn't understand that dynamic, it would get overpowered because actually it is a party. You're away from home, you're making some bank, you're in a new city. It's let's go party, man. And if you're young, right, it's like let's go party. And pretty soon you're going to get other people to start partying, and then other people are going to slack, and they're not doing their part, and it would have fell apart on him. He wouldn't have the success that he's going to have.
Yep. So, Jack, let's bring on our guest today. He's been sitting here and participating in the conversation. So let's bring Chris in. Chris Busse is a mortgage professional and has been for a long time. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Really appreciate you having me, and let me kind of be a little bit more of a part of the opening there. Chris Busse, I'm with Apex Home Mortgage. I'm a residential mortgage broker. I've been in the industry almost 20 years now, and just been through a lot, seen a lot, and just love what I do. There's nothing better than just helping people buy homes. It's a huge purchase, obviously, that takes a lot of time and energy, and I just enjoy helping people walk through that process. So, appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. I guess my biggest question is, you've been doing it for a long time. What was it? what was the spark that you're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to venture down this road, and what's kept you in it this long?
Yeah, it's a great question because it was one of those things kind of fell into. Not many people seek out, to be a mortgage
like a
lender.
Little kid, little kid.
When I grow up, I want to be. I was in banking, kind of right out of high school. Got started with a Bank One back in the day as a teller. And did that kind of part-time, did some other part-time jobs, but always kept that banking job, and then kind of ended up working my way through the customer service and through Bank One's different kind of customer service type roles, and then ended up being working out in Fountain Hills, and a girl that I was working with went to go work for Schwab as a stockbroker. And I thought that just seemed like kind of something different, something cool. Like, I'm kind of tired of the banking thing here. Let me try something different. So I ended up going over to Schwab for a couple of years, became fully licensed, learned about the markets, and something I'd never done before, didn't know anything about, but was just up for something new. Did that through the late 90s into the 2000s during the tech bubble run-up. Back then, everybody was a day trader. So I got to see this from afar, where when the masses get into something, you learn that's usually that ride's over, right? So everybody's day trading back then, and all of a sudden the bubble burst around March of 2020, and people lost a lot of money. Nobody's trading anymore, and just got to be kind of boring, really, the job in general. So decided to go back into banking in the early 2000s. I was fully licensed, so I was like a personal banker now. All of a sudden, real estate gets really hot, and you're seeing everybody's talking about real estate. They're buying, they're selling. The one thing I always remember is the lady who would deliver our FedEx packages sat at my desk one day, and she's like, "I need to open my business accounts for my new LLC. I'm a real estate investor." I'm like, "Okay, seen this before." Usually doesn't end very well. During that time, I was working. There were some guys from a mortgage company across the street who would need some help with different things from a bank standpoint, verifications of deposits, things like this. Maybe they didn't want to do a second mortgage for somebody, so I would do their second mortgages for them. So I just kind of connected with these guys. And one day, this guy, Mike Jackson, sat down on my desk. He said, "Have you ever thought of doing mortgages?" I said, I don't know anything about mortgages. I had one. I got one once. I know home equities, but I really don't know mortgage. He's like, "Oh, no problem. I'll teach you the business." I'm like, "All right, cool." Now this is 2005, July of 2005. So I guess I'm 19 years in the business. And he brings me over as his assistant, teaches me the business, and just kind of took off from there. And from actually my prior company I was at, I was still working with him and the guy that owned that company at the time, Steve Howard. It was really my mentor in the business. It was pretty amazing group to go work with from the start because they did things the right way. Back then it was kind of the wild, wild west still of mortgages. They did not get into any sort of too crazy lending products. But so I always say I learned from guys that really did the business the right way, and I've carried that over through my career.
Awesome. Let me ask you a question. You got in just before that big bubble burst of around 2008, and then I'm not sure if the effect of COVID and all that had sort of a similar effect as far as real estate and mortgage and all that goes. Yet there was a friend of mine in Vegas that was doing title, and I had a couple friends in real estate. And when that bubble burst, a lot of realtors, they just all vanished. They just disappeared. They'd have to go get real jobs.
Yeah,
Those aren't real jobs. Yeah. They'd have to go get other types of jobs and things like that. And not all of them, though. So some of them that I noticed, and I would ask why, there was a reason why they would be able to withstand those times when the other ones were not able to. And I was just interested in what did you do, and how are you able to withstand? Because it could happen again.
It is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in that now. Not so much COVID. COVID was a really good time.
Was a fun time.
COVID was a very good time for our business.
All right, so you're in it now.
Yeah, so we're in that right now for the last almost 2 years now.
Okay.
So from my original story of seeing kind of bubbles burst and understanding that the real estate wasn't going to last forever back then, I got into the business as an assistant. And back then I could do my own loans, I helped with his loans. I helped with other loan officers. I get overrides from different loan officers I helped, but I could also do my own business. That was time in my life where a lot of my friends were buying homes and their friends, and so I was able to kind of do a few different things, wear a few different hats, let's say. So I wasn't solely dependent just on my business coming in. So as we get into 06, 07, and then 08, and everything drops off in early 09, I was able to. Back then, the government was creating things to help spur home buying, whether it be the first-time homebuyer tax credit, HARP for refinancing. So it was a challenging time because so many people were, obviously home values dropped drastically, so it made it very challenging. But people were still able to buy. They didn't have a 3% interest rate and had no incentive to go buy. They had a 5 or 6% interest rate, and rates kept coming down over that time. So there's still some incentive if you did not have a short sale or foreclosure, you still had the ability to maybe purchase a new home. Fast forward now to 2019, 20, 21 were absolute best years ever, just because of now we've hit those super low interest rates. Now all those interest rates were artificially created by the government through their quantitative easing program, where they were buying billions of dollars of bonds, mortgage-backed securities every month, and that was just artificially driving rates low for so long. So we get to the kind of peak of the market there, 2021, where we just so much business coming in, you just couldn't sleep. So if you were smart about it and you've been in the business a long time and know this wasn't going to last either, just like anything else, you saved a lot. And so I was one of those savers, and now we fast forward here into rates. In almost 20 years in the business, this is my first rising interest rate environment I've ever worked in, because ever since the kind of late 90s there, rates have done nothing but kind of come down. There's always those ticks up and down, but in general, they've been coming down. So it was. This is a much more challenging time, I feel, than it was back then. Personally, again, because I'm just in a little bit of a different position now, being just straight up, loan officer, and that's it. But you survive it by, you stay in this business for as long as I have, just by taking care of people and doing what's right by them. And I've always done that. So the referrals come. I'm solely referral based. I don't buy leads. I just, get. I have a handful of great realtors that I work with, but primarily it's going to be, just kind of past clients coming back.
Yeah. And that's that was pretty much the formula. I mean, first of all, you're good at what you do, so you have the referrals. The other two things, especially this one woman told me, you live within your means. A lot of these, the 2000 before the bubble, they're making all this money and they're buying, $100,000 car and this big bad house. And she's like, no, you live. And I always wondered, because I think at the point she had like $4 million in the bank, plus investments and all that. And she lived in a place and the rent was $2,500 a month. And, I was like, yep. And she had a Jag, yet it wasn't brand new. It was a few years old. Yep. And she said, and you have to understand that things are going to go up and down, so you have to be good at saving and living within your means and understanding those concepts.
And then you can
withstand. Yeah.
A lot of loan officers, a lot of people in real estate in general are going back to, or getting out of the business now. Now that we're licensed, you can see the number of loan officers that are actually licensed and how many are renewing each year, and it's obviously on a downward trend there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Well, and Chris, I'd kind of going back to, the 08 time period, and then even today, the last couple of years, like I want to tie it back to our beginning conversation today with mindset. So what have you done? What have you kind of created and done for yourself mindset-wise to make it through those? Just like we were talking about Scotty Scheffler earlier, right? Like, what's Chris's mindset going into those times? And I'm sure today is probably a little bit different than it was in 08, because you've grown and you've developed and whatnot.
Yeah, it's interesting, because my mindset a lot of times I'm not a Scotty Scheffler where I can just block things out. Things get to me. Things can drag me down, and it's very easy for me to just kind of squirrel off. Oh, let me go do this right now, instead of maybe what I need to be really focused on. Because right now in my business, it's about it's about, being out there, meeting people, creating new connections, because those connections, even though there's not a lot of business happening right now, those connections are going to be very important for moving forward in years down the road. And so that's what you're really kind of focusing on right now is creating those new connections, and how you go about doing it, whether it be through networking, just getting yourself out there. There's lots of different ways. And I can be hard on myself at times that I don't think I do enough. But I really, right now in my life and career, enjoy my work-life balance, and where I'm at is a very good space for me. Now, at times, I think maybe I'm a little bit too lax and need to do some things differently. But so the mindset for me can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge, and making sure I'm staying in that mindset to be, am I doing enough on a daily basis to continue meeting people and growing my business forward?
Well, and I think it's, I know at least for myself, as we kind of get older and progress, that work-life balance becomes more and more important to us, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, earlier days, and, Mike and I know this from the restaurant industry, it's just, you just throw it all in, right? Mm-hmm. You got nothing, right? Jack, there was a time in your life where you had nothing else, right? Yeah. And you just dove in and eyes down, head down, and you just went to work, But now, Chris, you got kids, and you got a wife, and you got a life, and it's, that work-life balance becomes important. And sometimes, I know for myself as well, I can feel like, wow, I'm not working, I'm not driving as hard as I used to. However, I think there's a benefit on the flip side of that, right?
Yep. I completely agree. I like the fact that I can take my kids to their sporting practices, at 4:30 if I need to, or at all their games, and that's just stuff that they're going to remember, as they grow. And the dad was always there and around to see their events, and so I'm okay with that. And but it's when you utilizing that time during the day though to really maximize. And that's where you got to have that mindset, and make sure that you're really focused on the time that you do have available to work, that you're doing what you need to do.
Yeah. Now, is there a struggle because interest rates are where they are?
100%. Yeah.
That is it.
It's affordability right now. And that affordability is the fact that home prices, home values are, as high as they've really ever been. And interest rates are now back up to kind of you'd call it almost a normal level, high 6s, low 7s. We bounce around back and forth there. And if you look historically, that's not a very high rate.
Right.
It's a normal rate. But when you're a first-time home buyer, buying a median home of, let's just say $400,000, might even be a little bit more than that right now. And first-time home buyers don't have a lot of money to put down. So best case scenario, a conventional loan, not assuming you're a veteran, you can do 100% financing. First-time home buyer, 3% down is your minimum down payment requirement. You buy a $400,000 home, put 3% down, you're looking at a payment somewhere between $2,500, $2,600, $2,700 a month. What first-time home buyer is going to be comfortable? And I understand rent is high. Now, rent's coming down from what I'm hearing. But even if you go rent somewhere, you're going to be somewhere in a couple $1,000s a month, and it's just a challenge. That's why you see a lot of kids coming back from school, living with parents again, roommates. House hacking's a big thing these days, where you can you buy a home with 3 bedrooms and you rent out 2 of them, and that's how you can afford your payment. Or people are buying properties and splitting, making homes with like 7 rooms in them to be able to rent out. So there's house hacking's a big thing for especially the younger kids these days to be able to afford a home.
Well, somebody that you and I know, Eric Falston,
mm-hmm.
I mean, he started that way.
Yep.
I remember having conversations with him, and he's a mortgage guy as well. And
great mortgage guy.
He'd have 3-4 roommates at a time to put himself into a position that he is in today, right?
Yeah, no debt.
Yeah,
the mortgage guy doesn't like debt. That's how he always. I love that when he came up with that. He's a big anti-debt guy, and he got himself basically debt-free here in the last few years, and it's amazing. Owns multiple homes, and it's really cool. But the other thing I wanted to say really quick, Micah, was so that you got those first-time home buyers, but then you also have the move-up buyers, right? And those are usually your two biggest segments. At least in my world, I work with a lot of first-time home buyers. I work with a lot of move-up buyers. So you got those first-time home buyers we did loans for, say, in 2020. New family, maybe they've got another kid on the way, they need that next level house a little bit bigger, but why are you going to leave your home that you're in with a 2.5-3.5% interest rate to go get a $600,000-$800,000 home now for at a 6.5-7.5% interest rate? It just doesn't math out. And so unless you have to make that move, maybe you're moving in town, because now we do have a lot of people moving here from out of state, you're thinking twice about it. You're going to sit on the sideline and wait. A little bit of a problem with that is that my theory is that as interest rates start to come down eventually, once the Fed starts to reduce their Fed funds rate, which does not directly affect mortgage rates, but in general, as they start lowering their rates, you're going to see the 10-year, you're going to see the Treasury bonds and notes and stuff start to come down as well, which do have more of a direct effect on mortgage rates. So you'll start to see rates come down, and everybody that's on the sideline now say, okay, I can afford this a little bit more. Well, if we don't get more inventory, if we don't create more inventory, which the builders are trying to do right now, you're just going to have kind of a 2020, 2021 all over again, where a lot more buyers than there are homes for sale, and now all of a sudden you're going to see home prices
jump. And it creates a frenzy and all that stuff. But I remember the home rates back in, even the late 80s. I remember, my folks moving from, the one house that I initially started growing up in to a new town. And, I was like, I think they bought it for like $114,000. And I'm sure the interest rate at that time was probably anywhere between 8 and 12%, somewhere in there. Yeah. But that's it's more manageable when those home rates were lower. Yeah. Like the
home prices.
The home prices, yeah. And so, like, I get it. You hear out there all the time, oh, well, these are normal rates. Yet the inflation part of the home prices has just gotten to a point where it's like, oh my goodness, like, something's got to give somewhere. Otherwise, some people just flat out won't be able to afford to live in the homes. Yeah. Yet people are still moving, and there's always going to be movement in the real estate world. People change jobs, they're changing locations, all this and that, and they end up dealing with it. But for the masses, for the general public, it does put a strain on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what we're seeing is just, again, I've got a client moving here from New Jersey right now because her territory changed, and so she needs to be closer to California. So selling their house there, putting a very large down payment down on the house here, and she's got to do it. And every single time I have anybody in that position, it's, God, my current rate, when we start talking rate, I'm at 3%, I'm at 3.5%. It's like, it just hurts. It just hurts them. But they have to do it. So you've got those people, you've got people moving and buying homes, but it's just not as many as we've had in the past, and that's okay. We know that those kind of markets, everything's cyclical, that doesn't last forever. But you've always got people that will need to buy homes. And so to what you're talking about with the value of the home and interest rates and what they were back in, say, the late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, I get that all the time from, people a little bit older than me that, my first rate was 13, 16, whatever percent. I said, and so I would say, I remember this guy, Peter Barden, that I work with over at Guardian, great guy. We had this conversation, and I was like, well, yeah, your first home was what, like $40,000?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it was like 80.
Yeah.
But he goes, I was also only making $7 an hour or whatever it was, right? So it's all relative to wages too. Now, one of the problems right now is that our wage growth is just not keeping up with inflation, with the price of homes and everything here locally. So it's up. It's definitely up from where it's been, but it's not where it needs to be able to live, to be able to buy for a lot of people.
Well, and what amazes me when you talk about the pricing is freaking mobile homes. You see them $200,000-$300,000
yeah.
for a mobile home.
Manufactured homes.
Yeah, manufactured home.
Yeah, they don't like them being called mobile homes.
Well, there's differences. There are mobile homes. There's mobile homes that I would kind of classify those as like you're in a park and like you lease.
Yeah, wheels.
You're leasing the land.
Yeah.
Like with a manufactured, which I can actually lend on. That's where it's real property because it's affixed to the foundation and you own the land.
Yeah.
So mobile home, kind of the house in a park where you lease the land from the park, and then you've got your axles on there still and stuff. You could just technically put wheels on and take off if you ever want, but man, there's some very nice manufactured homes out these days, the way that they make them and the new ones now. But also you also think of the ones from the 80s and that are in different parks there that are still going to be up there in price. I mean, if you're in that, if your budget is say $200,000, $250,000, you're going to be very hard pressed to find something, depending on your comfort level where you want to live, that you'd be able to.
Very
in
difficult.
Phoenix Metro.
Well, I told you the people moving into town. I asked him, so what you want to buy a house? What mortgage payment? He said $1,200.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And right when he
so right then I knew, okay, unfortunately we're not gonna be able to buy
I'm
anything.
like $1,200. You're not even getting an apartment, I don't think, at $1,200 at this point. And I think one of the other things that I noticed from 19-ish or 20, and the minimum wage was $10 an hour or something.
10, 12, yeah.
Yeah, and then they boosted it up, and now it's at 12 or 15 or somewhere in that area. Yeah, they went way beyond it. Like if you were at Sonic now or, In-N-Out Burger or whatever, it's $20-$25 an hour.
It's crazy.
To work at In-N-Out Burger. They're starting at $20-$25 an hour. So this had some hit on like your almost your teenagers and your super young people in these little positions got this like, well, I'm making like double what I used to make and everything. But that didn't happen to the CPA. That didn't happen to the normal person. Their income didn't go up like that to that percentage. Yet when you look at those guys now that, okay, now I'm at $20 an hour. Just a few years ago, I was at like $12 or $10 an hour. Yet the price of everything went up. So they're still only able to afford the same stuff they were buying back then. However, for the rest of the people, higher middle class and all that, their wages didn't go up like that. So they're taking a hit.
Yeah.
They're actually feeling hey, wait, I'm making $100,000, $110,000 a year, and it's like I'm making 60. Yeah. I'm making 65.
So what do they do now? Now they have to increase their prices, right? Even that CPA. Okay, maybe I was charging $200 for a return before. What's that going to be now? $300 or $400 because I need to afford to live too.
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, you heard all that when the whole $15 minimum wage was coming out back then. We should be at 15. We should be. That's great. We can be there, but who's going to pay for that? Well, we are.
Yeah, you got to pay for it somehow. Actually, I noticed. And had the conversation before I got here. Whatever I forgot the insurance that we're paying for every month.
Homeowners insurance.
Right. Yeah, like whatever one we're
business
doing.
Insurance.
Oh, business insurance? Okay.
Yeah, it's at $300 now. And it wasn't when we started. I don't believe it was that high. And I was like, whoa.
That's another big part of the homeownership expense these days is that homeowners, I mean, you talk to any property and casualty property and casualty insurance agent, and they are having just as hard of a time in their business as we are because of our rates are up, their rates are up.
Yep.
Insurance companies are they've taken so many losses over the years, especially here in Arizona with all the road work, the construction, the horrible drivers. I mean, there's just so much paid out every year here that they have increased the homeowners insurance premiums so high that, again, that's just built into that cost of the monthly payment that you're paying for your mortgage. So.
Well, Jack, just a quick comment. We don't need to go down this road because it's a whole nother conversation. But, the minimum wage, today at $20-$25 an hour at a burger place, minimum wage was never meant to be a living wage.
No.
It was meant to be a place to start.
Yes.
Unfortunately, and again, we don't want to go down this road, but we're in a place in our society where people think that should be a living wage. So, Chris, that gal that's moving here from Jersey, and, she cringes at, she's got to put the money down and she's going to pay a higher interest rate, probably double what she has, maybe a little bit more now.
Exactly.
what is your advice for her down the road to maybe be in a better position down the road as things change?
Those are the conversations that we're having with every home buyer right now is, listen, this is a kind of a Band-Aid interest rate for you. Just get you into the home. And you, as we've shown over the last, 5 years, that refinancing is very easy to do. You can refinance your mortgage basically at any time. There's no prepayment penalties on 95% of the loans that are done out there, any conventional loans, FHA loans, VA loans. You get some of these non-qualified mortgage products that are out there, like a bank statement loan or a DSCR loan, where you can use the income for the property to qualify. Those kind of things might have prepays on them, but conventional FHA, VA, no prepayment penalties. So we can essentially refinance you pretty much at any time once interest rates drop. So I have that conversation with all of my home buyers, and I do offer them I hate using the word, calling it a free refinance, but what it is a no lender fee refinance. So as a mortgage broker, the only fee that the lender charges that we use, whether it be, say, Rocket Mortgage or Provident Funding or PennyMac, I can shop it around to multiple different companies. They each charge a lender fee, an underwriting fee, whatever you want to call it, an admin fee. They all call it something different, but it's basically that lender's cost for that loan, to originate that loan, $1,000, $1,100, whatever it might be. Everything else is kind of third-party appraisals and title fees and things like that. So I offer my buyers, I'll tell them I'll do the refinance for them with no lender fee, just save them some money there. So, the cost is going to be less. So it just becomes math. Maybe you're at a 7.25% interest rate. When is it going to be the time going to be right to refinance? Let's just see based on your loan amount and how much we can save you. If interest rates drop a point and a half, maybe it's 3/4 of a point because it's a really large loan amount and it still makes sense and will drop your payment significantly. The idea is, how quickly can you make up whatever that cost for the refinance is going to be? I like to see that you're going to break even on that with the interest savings in a matter of months or a year or something like that. So I offer all of my buyers, and so they understand that it's ideally going to be a short-term loan, in the sense that it could be a year, 2 years. Some people might think it'll be even longer. My conversation with the buyers too is, you got to be comfortable with the payment as it is today, though. Yeah. And you have to be comfortable, understand you're not getting into this loan saying, this is really going to be a challenge for me right now, but I'll be able to refinance in the future, because nobody knows. If I had a crystal ball tell me when you're going to be able to refinance, that'd be amazing. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. Right. Maybe the Fed's view right now is higher for longer. And now what that means and how long, nobody really knows. You can see that they've got some expectations out there built into the markets of a September price cut. But there were 6 going into this year. They thought there was going to be 6 rate reductions going into the year. The markets did. And now we're at, maybe we'll have one in September. Maybe we don't. Maybe that gets pushed out. So I tell my buyers, you have to be comfortable with this payment today, especially the first-time home buyers. And so the first-time home buyers and the people that we're typically working with are just a little, they're doing well. They're at a point in life where they're making some decent money and they're comfortable and they can actually afford that payment right now. It's obviously higher than maybe where they want to be at, but they can do it comfortably. Otherwise, I will never try to talk someone into. I get that you buy the home and you're going to build some equity, but I tell people, like, you're the one that's got to make the payment, not me. So even if I can qualify you for the mortgage, that's great, but you got to be comfortable making that payment is what it comes down to. And
yeah.
So
awesome.
Absolutely. I will say, I did have a crystal ball. It rolled off the table and broke. It's in the shop right now. So
let me know when you get that back, so you can tell us where we're heading.
Looks like we're at the time.
Awesome. So, Chris, thanks for being with us today. Tell people how they can reach you, name, phone number, that email, that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. Chris Busse, Apex Home Mortgage, 602-740-7867 is my cell phone. You can call or text me anytime, and my email address is chris@apexhm.com.
Awesome.
HM like home mortgage.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Great. Well, that wraps our podcast. You can find our podcast on YouTube. You'll also see it coming out on our Facebook group. If you are interested in learning more about Chris or ENO, the Empowerment Networking Organization, check us out at enosuccess.com. And guys, I think that's a wrap.
It is a wrap.
Adios.